The best designers are those who can capture a desired emotional response in the audience through the procession of garments. Perhaps they'll provoke confusion, question traditional beauty, or explore concepts of uniformity and religion. It's from the top designers where fashion ascends beyond the physical to provoke thought, expression, and occasionally bring tears to the audience. And if fashion has the ability to move people in such ways, what else could it do for the world? In the past year, the fashion industry was blindsided by a considerable hit in sales and saw consumers simultaneously abandon trends for more wearable and longer-lasting clothes. It's easy to blame the scapegoat for all our modern problems, but looking beyond the surface, this consumer shift of a time bomb has been ticking for a while. The State of Fashion 2020 predicted consumer shifts and sustainability-focused shoppers to impact the industry for the year, but lockdowns and quarantines have only accelerated these mindset shifts into widespread effect, as I've found myself rotating through a small collection of comfortable clothes, subconsciously neglecting 90% of my wardrobe. While we've settled into our lockdown routines, big fashion is still scrambling to find a solution to alleviate the sudden drop in sales. According to Statista, the monthly change in clothing store sales in Canada shows the largest dip of 86.8% loss of sales in the month of April. But even after stores reopen in recovering places like China, 74% of those consumers say they avoided shopping malls 2 weeks after stores reopened, potentially signaling the beginning of the end of brick-and-mortar stores. Many economists predict that the financial turmoil caused by lockdowns displays similar patterns to the layoffs of the Great Depression. The US job loss numbers peaked in March and have not recovered to the previous standard, meaning the direct and indirect loss of profits will impact the economy in all sectors beyond fashion. Amongst disagreement on the impending toll of the economic crisis, there's no denying the recurring lifestyle shifts between times of prosperity and times of recessions, which will and have taken effect. Have you ever wondered why car colors are so boring now? The short answer is that it costs more to paint a car color outside of the usual black, white, and gray. Average people nowadays aren't really buying extravagant car colors. Compare that to the 70s and 80s, or the 20s, of the bright, colorful cars which reflected the wealth of the time, but also during the recessions like the 30s and 60s, showcasing toned-down cars like browns and blacks. It's clear to see the positive correlation between wealth and car colors. You'll often hear that art and fashion is a reflection of society, but it seems that the economy has more influence on art than we give it credit for. But if you're really into fashion, the big question becomes, how can I save money but be unique and expressive at the same time? And if you dyed your hair pink, how can I do that while helping out the planet?
No, Stan, I'm afraid us adults just let you children down. We didn't take care of our earth, and now you've inherited our problems. We didn't listen! We didn't listen!
I've been watching a lot of nature documentaries recently, and I've noticed this thing about humanity that Mother Nature doesn't seem to comprehend, and that's called waste.
So traditional supply chains are usually just purchase, create, and dispose of. So there was a linear flow throughout the supply chain. So if you were a fashion retailer, vertical retailer, you would purchase your raw materials. You did work with your suppliers to make sure that they were in compliance with the rules and regulations that were in place at that time. You would develop your garments, and at that time the strategies were, let's stay on trend. Our focus is selling these garments, and we are not really considering what happens to it after it's being sold.
That's Ilka Jordan from the Jordan Alliance Group, a fashion retail consultancy. And what she says is that nature doesn't end at disposal, because the waste is repurposed back into the system. This is known as the circular chain flow, where all matter follows a continuous cycle where everything is food, and there is no waste. Or in the words of musical poet Macklemore, one man's trash is another man's come up, or in modern terms, treasure. Now, I understand it's very difficult to imitate the circularity of nature, and if it were easy, we would be doing it already. More power to those scientists who are actively trying to fix our systems, but there have been already some notable breakthroughs that the fashion industry and consumers should be aware of. The State of Fashion 2020 by McKinsey & Company writes that there are three main consumer shifts for this year: social media and overstimulation, which is about how social media, especially growing platforms like TikTok, are bringing social awareness to the masses. Smaller and personalized stores, which is what consumers want to bridge business and community, just to be more personal and neighborhoodly. And sustainability, which is pretty straightforward. These shifts are towards a slower fashion movement, which naturally comes with less cash flow in the economy, but also because the overconsumption of the decade has left many folks feeling overwhelmed. Due to the consumer shifts about environmental awareness, feelings of burnout, and the upcoming financial toll, many of the biggest overconsumers have sought out a better way to satisfy their fashion needs. Some have turned to minimalism, others to thrifting and buying used. Some have even started to alter and modify their own clothes. The overall theme is that we are starting to become more intentional. Intentional with our time, intentional with our energy, and intentional with our purchases. It's a mindset shift where we realize we actually don't have infinite resources and need to delegate our efforts. But it's a beautiful thing because it means collectively we can change a lot of the broken systems in the world. In my own practice, I'm focusing on garment construction because I want my clothes to act as clothes, to protect the wearer instead of the owner worrying about scratching it or scuffing it, to be functional as well as to be unique and expressive, ultimately balancing form and function, where old-fashioned leaned heavily on form. I guess you could call it properly fashioned. Rising young designers have already started this wave of sustainability-focused fashion by using more circular materials like natural fibers with minimal processing to create less trendy but more practical and durable garments in a slow fashion movement. The idea is that well-constructed garments last longer and in turn won't be filling up landfills at unbearable speeds. Good garment construction won't change the world. Being intentional and looking for well-constructed garments isn't going to fix our problems, but it gets us one step closer to that circular system for true sustainability. If you want to support me, please share this video with the people you know so that they can also listen to my monotone voice for 10 minutes, but also because you enjoyed the content. If you disagreed with anything I said or want to start a discussion in the comments, I'd highly encourage it because I connected these dots myself from just the things I've heard and my own research, so I'm well aware that I may have missed some points that should be considered in the mix. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I make videos about my fashion design journey, and I'll be posting a lot more cool behind the scenes stuff, so if you do want to be a part of this and you want to watch, I'd be really glad to have you here. Anyways, that's it, and there's usually like 2% of the people still here at this time, so that's it.